So coming to the class. So in the last class, we left off with applets. The video that we saw what is an applet. To create an applet, all we need to do is what? We need to extend a class called applet. Okay, by inheriting from a class called applet, we have simply created an. And there is some methods that we have defined for an applet. For example, init, start, stop,
destroy.
There is one more method called paint, which is a method of your component class. Okay, and this method can be used to actually repaint or to actually change the contents of your applet window. Clear? So that was applets. So applet is nothing but you created a interface, a GUI. Using an applet, you're actually creating a GUI interface. The GUI interface may have some text. It may have a button. Okay, കുറച്ച് delay on in the board. Please bear with that. I will try to be as slow as possible, but there's a small delay when I speak and when I write also. ഞാൻ ഇവിടെ ഇരുന്ന സ്പീഡിലല്ല നിങ്ങൾക്ക് അവിടെ വരുന്നത്. Please bear with that. ഞാൻ പറയുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് you just have a sight on that particular board. It will automatically come. Small delay on that. Okay. So there will be a button, a text, or there can be a text box, or a list. Okay, a text box അങ്ങനത്തെ ഒരു text box ആയി പോയി. Leave that. Okay, forget it. But still, there's a UI. You're creating a UI using our. Now, UI മാത്രം create ചെയ്താൽ we will not get anything. What is a UI used for? UI is actually used for interacting with the. Now, conventionally, നമ്മൾ Java programs നിങ്ങളൊക്കെ പഠിച്ചപ്പോൾ Python first year Python പഠിച്ചു, second year C പഠിച്ചു. Now, again you're learning Java. So you're learning command line programs. Okay, so the command line is basically what? The program which actually initiates the actions within the thing. That is, the program will first ask you, prompt you to enter the input. It is not a user will not decide when to actually give the input. The program will decide when you should input. Okay, that is your conventional programming. Your black screen on a black screen you will get a message to enter an input. So the program is actually initiating and telling you when to enter it. You cannot decide when to enter the. But in a graphical user interface, it's a reverse. The program is that just to execute your requests. Okay, you will decide when to provide input. You will decide when are you going to click this particular button. Okay, you will decide when are you going to enter something into your text box. Okay, so that is what is different from a GUI. So whenever you decide to do something on an applet, for example, you're going to click this particular button. Okay, you're going to click on this particular button. So when you click on this particular button, something called as an event has been generated. And now the program will perform some kind of action. So you are going to initiate what is going to happen with the program. Once you click on the button, an event is generated, and the program will decide on how it acts on this particular. After acting on this particular event, control is given back to the user, so the user can then next go and type something in your text box, okay, or close it, or even close the applet window. Okay, so control should always go back to the. Okay, control should always go back to the user. You cannot, after clicking a button, you cannot always go into an infinite. Your program cannot go into an infinite loop without giving control back to the. What happens? If the control is not given back to the user, what happens? If the user tries to close the window or type something into the text box, that will not be considered as an event that you cannot perform it. Okay, so control should always be given back to the. So assignment scrolling banner banner. In the scrolling banner, please mute background sound. Okay, in the scrolling banner, if you want to implement a scrolling banner, it is necessary that you should have an infinite loop, because a scrolling banner runs infinitely. It is necessary to have an infinite loop. Then, if there is an infinite loop, how do you handle it? So, the only thing that you can do, I'm telling you that you cannot have an infinite loop in event handling. The only thing you can do is you can have this infinite loop as a thread, running as a thread, and your event handling as a different thread. Okay, so that what? Your banner will be scrolling as a thread in the background, two different threads, and control is passed back to the user using a different thread. Okay, that's why threads are also important when it comes to event handling. So one part of your program can be running infinitely in the background while you still what monitor the different events that can happen inside your. Okay, so that is basically what event handling, the basics of event handling. Now, one very important topic in event handling is, in Java, event handling is done using a particular model called as a delegation event.
ഹലോ
Yes, പറഞ്ഞോ.
സാർ നിർത്തിയോ? ഞാൻ എന്റെ കണക്ഷൻ പോയി.
കണക്ഷൻ പോയതല്ല. Okay, delegation event model. Okay, ഞാൻ കുറച്ച് when I'm writing down things, I'm just going to slow it a bit കാരണം അവിടെ വരുമ്പോൾ കുറച്ച് ഡിലേ ആയിക്കൊണ്ടാണ് I'm slowing it up. Okay, when I'm writing things, I'm going to slow, so I'm going to wait till it comes into your. Okay, so it is a called as a delegation event model. This is very important. It is asked in many examinations, university examination, what is a delegation, or explain or define a delegation event model. It defines how event handling is done in Java. Okay, so in simple words, delegation event model, it is basically you will have something called as a source. Okay, the sources are basically sources, things that can generate events. The source generates events. This is an E, okay? Or a triangle, that's an E. Okay. The source generates events. Okay. And sources can be like what? Your applet screen is a source, a button is a source. Okay. Events are basically what? When you're clicking a button in your mouse, when you're right clicking, when you're left clicking, when you're typing your keyboard, when you're clicking a button in your screen, when you're minimizing your window, all these are different events. The sources generates events. Okay. And it sends these events, generates events, and it sends these events to something called as a listener. Okay, again, so sources generates events. Okay, not only one, it can generate multiple events. Okay, sources generates events, and the events are sent to, the generated events are sent to a listener. What a listener does is it simply waits for a event to receive a particular event. That's what the job of a listener. Listener just waits for a particular event. Okay, once the event is received, the listener is the one which processes the. Once it receives an event, for example, it receives a mouse click event. The listener decides what to do if it is a left click, what to do if it is a right click, what to do if it is a double click, okay, what to do if it is a long press. Okay, the listener is the portion where you define or you implement what happens when I actually generated. So the source generates your events, it is then sent to a listener, and the listener handles your. Now, for the listener to get a notification that an event has been occurred in your source, for a listener to get a notification, to say that an event has been generated, to understand that an event has been generated, or you can say that for a listener to receive events, okay, the listener must first register to a source. Okay, for a listener to receive events, only if the listener receive the event can the listener process the events. So for a listener to receive events, the listener must register to the particular. This is basically what is a delegation event model. Again, the source generates events, events are sent to listeners, listeners handle events, and to receive notification of the events, the listener must register to the. Understood? Now let's see
Understood.
each one. So we have different things over here. That is, one is a source, events, and listener. We're going to see one and each one in detail. First, we look into What are events? Okay, an event is an object. In Java, event is an object. This object is automatically created when an event is actually occurred. And when do these events occur, or when are these events generated? The events are generated, for example, when you're pressing a button. Button in a it is not your keyboard buttons, which I'm meaning. Buttons can be inside your applet window. Now you can create a button. നിങ്ങൾ കണ്ടിട്ടില്ല ജിയോ എലിമെന്റ്സ് ഒക്കെ ബട്ടൺ ഒക്കെ ക്ലിയർ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട് ഇപ്പൊ കാൽക്കുലേറ്റർ ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ കാൽക്കുലേറ്ററിന്റെ ബട്ടൺ ഉണ്ട് കാൽക്കുലേറ്റ് പ്ലസ് മൈനസ് you can create different form ഉണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഫോമിനകത്ത് സബ്മിറ്റ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ബട്ടൺ ഉണ്ട് you can create such buttons. By pressing that particular button, you can what? Generate an event object is actually created. Okay, that is basically you're generating events. Or even by entering a character via your keyboard or through your text box in your GUI. Or by selecting an item in a list given in your GUI. Or by clicking your mouse somewhere in your window. By right-clicking your mouse. By scrolling your window. All these are when events objects are automatically created. Okay, these event objects are created. Okay, and by creating this event object, you mean by what? The sources are actually generating. Okay, event may be generated also when, for example, a timer expires. Timer, you write within your program, you write a for loop, you create a timer. Whenever a timer expires, becomes 0, you can generate an event. You can manually create events if you want. Or you can events are also created when a hardware there's some kind of hardware failure, an event is automatically created in that case. So these are called events. Okay, events are objects that are automatically, or if you want, you can manually create it when you interact with your GUI. Mostly, it is created when you interact with your GUI. Like for clicking a button, typing into a text box, okay, minimizing the window, scrolling your window, all these are different events that can happen. Okay, so that is a event. Clear? Next, event sources. Okay, event sources are GUI elements which actually create or generate these events. Event sources can be what? AWT components. AWT components in a components in a applet is an AWT component. Okay, next module പഠിക്കാൻ പോകുന്ന കുറെ AWT components പഠിക്കും. For example, frame പഠിക്കും, window പഠിക്കും, okay, text box പഠിക്കും, button പഠിക്കും, radio buttons പഠിക്കും, list പഠിക്കും, അങ്ങനെ കുറെ കാര്യങ്ങളുണ്ട്. All these are GUI elements. These GUI elements can be sources. What are other sources? Your keyboard can be a source. Your keyboard can generate events. When you're writing something in your keyboard, key pressed is an event, key released is an event, key typed is an event. When you're using a mouse also, it is also an event. Clicking a mouse on an applet window is an event. Right clicking is an event. These are different events that generated by sources. The sources are also objects. So a source objects generates a event object. Okay, sources are also objects. Okay, now for a source object to generate, after generating an event, okay, these events must be sent where? To the listener. Okay, these events must be sent to the listener. If the listener wants to receive events, what I tell you, the listener must first register in your. Okay, so the sources must what? Actually register the different. Okay, or the sources must have the list of registered listeners. So every source is an object which must register a set of listeners to handle the different events that sources can generate. Sources can generate many type of events. To handle all these events, it must say what are the listeners that is registered to the particular. Okay, for each type of event has its own method defined for registration. Okay, for example, a key event has a method or a function used which is called to register that particular. A mouse event also has a function which is called to register that particular mouse. So for each type of event, there are many events. For each type of event, you have a corresponding function that is called to actually to register that particular. Why do you register an event? Once you register that event, so that you can send a notification to its corresponding listeners. Okay, the listeners are the ones which actually what process the event or does something when an event happens. So what are these functions? In general, the function is defined as a public function. Okay, a public. The return type is void, and in general, for each and every type of event, you have this function called add. Then the type of your event. If it is key, type in a key varum. If it is mouse, type in a mouse varum. If it is an item event, type in a item varum. So for each type of event, you will add a corresponding listener. Add type listener. Okay, fine. So ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടിരുന്ന വെച്ചാല് for each type of event that is generated in the event sources, you need to register your listener by calling this particular function. That is, this function is defined as a public function, which where the return type is void, and for each type of, so this type is very important. You don't mention type over here. This type is very important. Instead of type, you will mention the type. So key in mouse in mouse. For each type of listener, you need to call the corresponding type. For example, if I want to add or if I want to register a keyboard listener, for example, if I want to handle keyboard events. So if I want to add a keyboard listener, for that inside my source, I need to register. So inside my source, I will do add. For keyboard listener, I will have key listener. I'll call this particular function by passing a key listener object, KL. KL is a key listener file. By calling this function, what I'm doing is I'm actually registering this key listener to my to my source. So every time a keyboard event happens in my source, if my source is my applet, every time a keyboard listener key event happens in my source, it will be the notification will be sent to this particular listener called as a key listener. That is KL. KL na parna object like a notification will be sent. Okay, if I want to add a mouse listener, or if I want to register a mouse listener, I use add mouse and pass the mouse listener. Okay. So for each type of event, you have its corresponding listener, and you need to register its corresponding listener by calling this function called as add mouse listener, add key listener, or there's another event called as item event. There's an event called as an item event. Item event. So if an item event is generated, if I want to handle an item event, I should register an item listener. So I'll need to write inside the source. This should be done inside your sources. Sources can be what? Applets, buttons, and call it a type of sources. So add item listener. IL. You should always pass the object. Okay. Now, നിങ്ങൾ assignment ഒക്കെ ചെയ്തപ്പോഴേക്ക് നിങ്ങൾ കുറെ ടെക്സ്റ്റ് ബുക്കിന് കുറെ കോഡൊക്കെ നോക്കിയിട്ട് you will not have this. എല്ലാ പ്രാവശ്യം നമ്മൾ this എന്നായിരിക്കും കൊടുക്കുന്നത് പകരം. Instead of IL, ML or EL, this എന്നായിരിക്കും കൊടുക്കുന്നത്. Why this എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ കൊടുക്കുമ്പോൾ what do you mean this? This എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്തെങ്കിലും അറിയാവോ? ആരെങ്കിലും പറയാവോ? ഇത് വിളിക്കാം. This എന്താണെന്ന് അറിയാവോ? ആഞ്ചലിയ, this unmute ചെയ്യുക. ആഞ്ചലിയ, റെസ്പോണ്ട് ചെയ്യാത്തവർക്ക് ഞാൻ പേര് എഴുതി വെക്കുക. I will consider this later on. Angelia.
Angela.
Angelia.
Hello.
this എന്താണെന്ന് അറിയാവോ?
നമ്മളൊരു പർട്ടിക്കുലർ പ്രോഗ്രാമിനെ വിളിക്കാനല്ലേ ദിസ് ഉപയോഗിക്കുന്നത്?
പർട്ടിക്കുലർ പ്രോഗ്രാം അല്ല. അതായത് നിങ്ങൾ പറയാൻ പറ്റുമോ? അഞ്ജന, അഞ്ജന, അഞ്ജന അല്ലേ ഇവിടെ? പോയോ
സർ?
പറഞ്ഞോ. പറഞ്ഞോ അഞ്ജന, കേക്കാം. സാറിന് മാത്രം കേട്ടുള്ളൂ.
റിപ്പീറ്റ് ചെയ്യാതെ യൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി.
യൂസ് ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടിയാണോ ദിസ് യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്? പിന്നെ ആഷർ അറിയോ? ആഷർ കേട്ടില്ല, കുറച്ച് ഓർക്ക പറയാവോ? റെഫറൻസ് ഏതിന്റെ റെഫറൻസ് വേരിയബിളാ? ദിസ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ റെഫറൻസ് വേരിയബിളാ. പക്ഷെ എങ്ങോട്ട് പോയിന്റ് ചെയ്യുന്ന റെഫറൻസ് വേരിയബിളാ?
കറന്റ് ഒബ്ജക്റ്റ്.
കറക്റ്റ്. ഓക്കെ, Abraham. Okay, so this is what it is, the current object. It defines the current. So if my source itself is my listener, I can write a program where my source itself is a listener. നിങ്ങൾ അസൈൻമെന്റ് ഒക്കെ ചെയ്തപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെയായിരിക്കും. നിങ്ങൾ ആപ്ലെറ്റ് ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്തു, എക്സ്റ്റെൻസ് ആപ്ലെറ്റ്, ഇംപ്ലിമെന്റ്സ് മൗസ് ലിസണർ, കീ ലിസണർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ എഴുതി വെച്ചു. So your source itself is a listener also. So your source will generate, your source എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ആപ്ലെറ്റ് will generate the events and it will send notification to itself. ഓക്കെ, അതിനു വേണ്ടിയാണ് ദിസിന് കൊടുക്കും. നമ്മൾ നോർമലി ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ എപ്പോഴും ആ ലിസണർ വിൽ നോട്ട് ബി എ ഡിഫറെന്റ് ക്ലാസ്, ബട്ട് ഇറ്റ് ബി ദ സെയിം ക്ലാസ് ഇറ്റ്സെൽഫ്. ഓക്കെ, ലിസണേഴ്സ് എന്താണ് കുറച്ചും ഡീറ്റെയിൽ. സോ ടു രജിസ്റ്റർ ലിസണർ യു യൂസ് വാട്ട്? യു യൂസ് this particular syntax. You use the word add, then the event type, then listener, and then you pass a listener object. Okay, clear? മനസ്സിലായോ?
Yes, sir.
Any doubts up to ഇതുവരെ ഉള്ള? എന്തെങ്കിലും ഡൗട്ട്സ് ഉണ്ടോ? Okay, so next is നമ്മളിപ്പം ഈവൻസ് കണ്ടു, ഈവന്റ് സോഴ്സസ് കണ്ടു, സോഴ്സും ഈവന്റ് കണ്ടു. സോഴ്സ് ജനറേറ്റ്സ് ഈവൻസ്. Okay, now what happens? Events are sent to listeners. Now let's look into event listeners. Now, what is the role of a listener? Listener would be registered. First, the listener would be registered. Okay, and the listener should process your event once it receives the notification. So, a listener is an object. So, listener is also an object. So, all these are basically objects. Okay, your source is an object, your event is an object, your listeners are also objects. It is an object that is notified whenever an event is occurred. A listener is an object which is notified whenever an event is occurred. It is notified only if it is registered in the source. If it is not registered, if the listener is not registered, then it is not notified. So there are two major requirements for every listener that you implement. The first requirement is what? You must register to one or more. So each and every listener that you create must be registered to at least one or more sources. So the first requirement is it must be registered to one or more sources. Okay, that is the first requirement. So if you have a listener is an object. The first requirement is it must be registered to one or more sources. Only if it is registered to one or more sources will it receive notification saying that this particular event has been generated or occurred in this particular source, and only if it receives this notification can it handle the or can it process this particular event. So that is the first requirement. It must be registered to one or more. The second requirement is it must implement the different methods for these events to process these events. Okay. So for each and every the event listener must implement. Okay, it must all methods. Okay, methods to process events. So the two requirements are, the first requirement is it must be what? Registered to one or more sources. So once these one or more sources, one of these sources generates an event, a notification is sent to what? To your listener, and the listener must implement different methods to handle these events. So a listener would must implement different methods, okay, to process these events. Once it receives the notification from the sources, okay, it must implement methods or functions to handle these events. For example, you have an applet source. This is an applet. It is a source. Okay, this is an applet. It is my source. Okay. Now I use my mouse and go and click on this particular. Okay. Once I click on this particular source, an event has been generated, called as an mouse event. A mouse event is being generated. Now, if there is a listener, if there is a mouse listener, which is registered to this particular source. If there is a mouse listener which is registered to this particular source, then what happened? This source will give a notification to the mouse listener saying that a mouse event has, the notification says that the mouse event has. Now this mouse listener which received the particular notification, it received the notification, should be able to handle this particular notification or this particular and processes by implementing many methods. Okay, for example, because it is a mouse click that we have done, there should be a method for mouse. For example, there should be a method called mouse click, and this must be implemented. Mouse click must be implemented. If it is mouse pressed, you're pressing the mouse clicked and mouse pressed are different events. Okay, then there should be a method for handling that particular event. If it is mouse released, then there should be a method to handle a mouse released. So all these methods, mouse clicked, mouse pressed, mouse released, should be implemented inside my mouse. Okay, all these methods, mouse clicked, mouse pressed, all should be implemented inside my mouse list. That is my second point. So the 2 points are what? First, it must be registered to one or more sources. And second, it should process the events. How do you process events? By implementing all the methods required. Clear?
Yes.
Okay, so for now, ഇന്നത്തേക്ക് ഇപ്പം ഇത്രയും മതി. next, what we need to do is, class so next what we need to do is, this is what is the delegation event. Source, you have a source. The source can be an applet, it can be a button, it can be many things that can generate events. The source will generate events and it will send notification to listeners. It will send notification to listeners only if the listeners register to that particular. Once a notification is received by the listener should implement all these. Okay. Now, as an assignment, as a reading, okay. Can you see this in the textbook? Textbook PDF?
No, sir.
No, sir.
1 minute. കാണുന്നുണ്ടോ?
ലോഡായില്ല.
ഇല്ല സാർ,
കാണത്തില്ല.
Yes, sir.
അപ്പൊ കാണാൻ തുടങ്ങില്ലേ?
കാണാം.
ഒരു ഡിലേ ഉണ്ട്. ഇപ്പൊ വരും. 1 minute. Okay, textbook കാണുന്നുണ്ടല്ലോ?
Yes, sir.
Now, in this textbook, there's a chapter called event handling എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ചാപ്റ്റർ ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പൊ ഈ ചാപ്റ്ററിനകത്ത് ബേസിക്സ് സച്ച് ആസ് ഞാനിപ്പോ പറഞ്ഞ ഈ ഈവന്റ് ഹാൻഡ്ലിംഗ് ഒക്കെ എക്സ്പ്ലെയിൻ ചെയ്യുന്നുണ്ട്. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് വെരി ഞാൻ ഇപ്പൊ പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ ഉള്ളൂ. ഈവന്റ് എന്താണ്, വാട്ട് ഈസ് ഈവന്റ് ഹാൻഡ്ലിംഗ്, വാട്ട് ഈസ് ഈവന്റ് സോഴ്സസ്, വാട്ട് ഈസ് ഈവന്റ് ലിസണേഴ്സ്, ഓക്കെ, ഇതെല്ലാം പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. ഓക്കെ, then after ഇതെല്ലാം കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് when you go down, there is something called as event classes. Okay, event classes എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ഒരു സെക്ഷൻ ഉണ്ട്. You have to read through all these parts, that is delegation event model, event and sources and the listeners and brief ആയിട്ട് പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. പിന്നെ അത് ഞാൻ കുറച്ചുകൂടി ഡീറ്റെയിൽ ആയിട്ട് പോകുന്നു. event classes എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു. In this event classes, you'll see a table which will define a set of കുറെ events ഉണ്ട്. കണ്ടില്ലേ, ഇവിടെ ഒരു ടേബിൾ ഉണ്ട്. These are the different events that the sources can generate. Okay, അപ്പൊ each one of these event has a corresponding listener. അത് നമ്മൾ പിന്നെ പഠിക്കാം. But what I want you to do is, I want you to read through all these different type of events. Not in this table, താഴെ description detail ആയിട്ടുണ്ട്. ഇത് കണ്ടോ, event class, action event എന്ന് ഡീറ്റെയിൽ ആയിട്ട് എന്താ പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. അങ്ങനെ ഓരോ ഈവന്റിന് ഡീറ്റെയിൽ ആയിട്ട് കാര്യം പറയുന്നുണ്ട്. Now you have to learn this. പഠിക്കാതിരിക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല, കുറെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ ഇതിനകത്ത് വരുന്നുണ്ട്. കുറെ മകപ്പ് ചെയ്യേണ്ടി വരും. കുറച്ച് മനസ്സിലാക്കിയാൽ പിന്നെ മകപ്പ് ചെയ്യാനും വലിയ ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടുണ്ട്. But for each and every event you need to learn this. പിന്നെ എക്സാമിനേഷൻ ഈ ടെക്സ്റ്റ് ബുക്ക് ഈ ഭാഗം പഠിക്കാൻ കുറച്ച് ബുദ്ധിമുട്ടായിരിക്കും. For your examination, this will be your assignment for the end of this week. Okay, what you need to do is, you go take the, for example, I'm going to take the key event. Key event in a description. Key event is actually used to generate when input is received from your keyboard. Okay, so you take your key event and there's a description for your key event, and you need to analyze this, what all is given here. Okay, just adon eduthotte. Okay, key event nagath അല്ല, കീ ഇവന്റ് പകരം ഞാൻ കീ ഇവന്റ് ഓൾറെഡി അപ്പുറത്തെ ക്ലാസ് കാര്യങ്ങൾ പറഞ്ഞിട്ടുണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഞാൻ മൗസ് ഇവന്റ് എടുക്കാം. ഓക്കെ, ഇപ്പൊ മൗസ് ഇവന്റിനകത്ത് you take one of the event and you need to write down the different integer constants. So all the capital letter area can all integer constants. Okay, write down the different integer constants that are there in your mouse. For example, if I mouse clicked, basically to know whether these are different events that can occur for a mouse event, different type of mouse. Mouse clicked on the mouse, dragged on the mouse, entered, mouse exited. ഇതെല്ലാം different integer constants ആയിട്ടാ. So whenever you are clicking a mouse, when the event is generated, the exact type of event is understood according to these constants. If it is mouse wheel, that means there is a mouse wheel event that has. Okay. There are many integer constants defined for each and every event class. But key event there are many. There are 3 event: key pressed, key released, key type. There are some more key event classes or integer constants. VK0, virtual key. VK virtual key. Okay, VK0 to VK name. Basically 0 to 9 keys. Number keyboard 0 to 9 keys. Or integer constants set. അതുപോലെ തന്നെയാണ് VK A to VKZ. A to Z ഉള്ള virtual keys. പിന്നെ VK alt എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ അല്ല VK cancel എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്താ? All the other keyboards buttons in my keyboard. VK enter button, control button, page up button, page down button, left, right, down, everything is there. So these are all the different integer constants. So you need to write down, descriptive item. First write down for each and every class, you need to write down the different integer constants. Okay. Then what are the constructors defined inside your method? Mouse event in case or constructor. This is a constructor for your mouse event. So what is the constructors defined for your particular event? For mouse event or constructor, there are some events which has more than one type of constructor. For example, under number focus event under. This focus event has 3 types of constructors. Okay, depending on different types of. Okay, so you need to first list down the integer constants. Next, list down the different constructors, and third, list down the different methods defined inside my. From mouse in the case, int get x get y method. This will retrieve the x and y coordinates of your mouse, position coordinates of your. Method translate pointer method get click counter method pop-up triggered method get button method and also for e button integer constants are the button no button 1 button 2 button 3 button 1 is an integer constant which identifies button 1 button 2 integer constant that identifies button 2 button 3 is your right click actually. So this is left click, middle click, right click. Okay. So for each and every event, there will be a list of integer constants, list of constructors, and list of methods. We were going to get X on screen, get a location, methods under. So keyboard in the case, there are 2 methods, get key char and get key code. Get key char will return the character of the keyboard you have entered. If you H enter H return get key char. Get key code and key in the code on the characters in the keyboard key buttons on the keyboard. For example, your control button, it's not a character. Okay, so that's no code on that. You'll return that code. So get key code return type is integer. Get key char is return type is. So what you have to do as an assignment is for each and every event for events there's a table action event, adjustment component event, container, focus, input, item, key, mouse event, mouse wheel, text window, window event. Events is very on the JWT. But event in the textbook that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. For all these events, you need to list out the different integer constants, the different constructors, and the different methods. Methods you say just for an idea. That is why I asked you to read it. Okay, so that should be done as an assignment by the end of the week. So now assignment submit okay, so that should be done. Writing this assignment, please write it for your sake, because textbook so for your sake, please write it down. I'm not going to do anything to you if you write it however you want. നിങ്ങൾക്ക് എക്സാമിനേഷൻ പെട്ടെന്ന് പഠിക്കാൻ എളുപ്പത്തിന് വേണ്ടിയാണ് make it in your own way. Make it constructive such a way that you can write all the things. Okay. Write the assignment or write the things in the way that you can understand. Because ഇതിലെല്ലാം പഠിക്കാൻ കുറച്ച് ബുദ്ധിമുട്ട്, ഇതെല്ലാം ഓർത്ത് വെക്കാൻ ഭയങ്കര ബുദ്ധിമുട്ട്. എത്രയും ക്ലാസ്സസ് ഉണ്ട്, ഇതിലെല്ലാ ക്ലാസ്സും ഇൻഡിവിജ്വൽ കോൺടാക്ട് ചെയ്ത കൺസ്ട്രക്ടേഴ്സ് എങ്ങനെ ഏതൊക്കെ മെത്തേഡ്സ് ഓർത്ത് വെക്കാൻ ഭയങ്കര ബുദ്ധിമുട്ട്. Key event is very important. Mouse event is very important. Mouse wheel event is important. പിന്നെ ഉള്ളത് ആക്ഷൻ ഇവന്റ് ഇസ് ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ്, ഐറ്റം ഇവന്റ് ഇസ് വെരി ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ്, അഡ്ജസ്റ്റ്മെന്റ് ഇവന്റ് ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ്. ഇത്രയും ഇവന്റ് മസ്റ്റ് ആയിട്ട് തറവായിട്ട് പഠിക്കണം. ബാക്കിയെല്ലാം ജസ്റ്റ് യു ഷുഡ് ഹാവ് എൻ ഐഡിയ ഫോർ എൻ എക്സാമിനേഷൻ. ഓൾ ദീസ് ഇവന്റിന്റെ ഇന്റിജർ കോൺസ്റ്റന്റ്സ്, മെത്തേഡ്സ് ആൻഡ് കൺസ്ട്രക്ടേഴ്സ് ഷുഡ് ബി, because we are going to in the next module we are going to make use of action event. കുറെ പിന്നെ ഐറ്റം ഇവന്റും കുറെ യൂസ് ചെയ്യും, ഹൗസ് ഇവന്റും കുറെ. Okay, so that is today in the minor than ഇത് വായിച്ചു നോക്കുക. By the end of the week you need to write this. Okay, tomorrow also you will have some more assignment to that. Now, any doubts in today's class?
No, sir.
Any doubts?
No, sir.
സാർ ഈ സോഴ്സ് എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോ കോഡാണോ സാർ ഉപയോഗിച്ചത്? നമ്മൾ ടൈപ്പ് ചെയ്യുന്ന ക്ലാസ് അതൊക്കെയാണ് സോഴ്സ്?
സോഴ്സ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഈവന്റ് ജനറേറ്റ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് ഈ സോഴ്സ്. സോ നമ്മൾ ടൈപ്പ് ഇപ്പൊ നമ്മൾ ഒരു ആപ്ലെറ്റ് ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്തില്ലേ, ഒരു പുതിയ മൈ ആപ്ലെറ്റ് ക്ലാസ്, മൈ ആപ്ലെറ്റ് ഫോർ എക്സാമ്പിൾ ക്ലാസ് ഇങ്ങനെ ഒരു ക്ലാസ് നമ്മൾ ക്രിയേറ്റ് ചെയ്തു. ഓക്കെ, സോ ആപ്ലെറ്റ്സ് ആർ ആക്ച്വലി വരുന്ന ഒരു ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞ ആപ്ലെറ്റ് എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ ക്ലാസ് ഇസ് എ സബ് ക്ലാസ് ഓഫ് എ ക്ലാസ് കോൾഡ് panel. Panel is a subclass of a class called container. Container is a subclass of a class called component. Okay, it is actually a AWT component. Okay, or basically a GUI element. So this is actually my applet. Yang created a class is actually a source which can generate many types of events. Okay, so this source should register to a one or more listeners. Normally registration like a chain init ennu parna function le init la nammal one time run ചെയ്യുന്ന സംഭവം init നകത്ത് നമ്മൾ എഴുതാൻ പോവാറ്. So inside init I can write add for keyboard event ആണെങ്കിൽ key listener and pass. ഇവരിപ്പം ദിസിന് കൊടുക്കുവാണെങ്കിൽ എന്താ ഈ ഓബ്ജക്ട് മൈ ആപ്ലെറ്റ് തന്നെയാണ് എന്റെ സോഴ്സും ലിസണറും രണ്ടും ദിസിന് കൊടുക്കുവാണെങ്കിൽ. Okay, so ഇവിടെ ഞാൻ I have registered a keyboard listener to my applet. So I should this should be it should implement. ഞാൻ പറഞ്ഞത് this is an interface, a listener's interface. ഞാൻ പറയാൻ പറഞ്ഞത് listener is an interface, so it should implement a key listener.
Okay, keyboard listener.
Okay, implement key listener. അപ്പൊ key listener എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ key listener implement ചെയ്യുമ്പോഴേക്ക് what happens? Key listener is an interface. Interface എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ എന്താണെന്ന് ഓർക്കുന്നുണ്ടോ? What is an interface? Interface ഞാൻ നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞത് it's a fully abstract method. അല്ലേ? So interface എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ key listener എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ it's a predefined interface. Okay, it's a predefined interface. Class അല്ല, it's an interface. This interface has many abstract methods. For a key listener, abstract methods എന്തൊക്കെയാണെന്ന് അറിയാവോ? Key pressed, key released, key typed. These are the three methods defined inside my interface. So ഞാൻ ഇവിടെ implement key listeners എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞ് കൊടുക്കുവാണെങ്കിൽ, ഇവിടെ implement key listeners പറഞ്ഞ് കൊടുക്കുവാണെങ്കിൽ what should I do? Inside this class I should implement all these methods. എന്തൊക്കെയാ methods? Public, void, key pressed. Okay,
Packet this.
ഇവിടെ key pressed it's an event എടുക്കും, that is key event class. Key event. Okay, and you'll write code whatever is necessary whenever key is pressed. അതുപോലെ you should implement all methods in my interface. അടുത്ത method എന്നാ key public void
Key type. Key released.
അവിടെയും key event ആണ് object ആയിട്ട് pass ചെയ്യുന്നത് as an attribute. And you do anything you require whenever key is released. അത്ര കഴിഞ്ഞല്ലോ. There are 3 methods defined inside my interface. ഒരെണ്ണം implement ചെയ്യാതിരുന്ന what it will show an error. Listener must the subclass of your key listener, that is what. എനിക്ക് ഇവിടെ implement key listener കൊടുത്തുകൊണ്ട് my app should implement all methods in key listener. So ഇവിടെ ആകെ 2 മെത്തേഡ് ഇംപ്ലിമെന്റ് ചെയ്തേ ബട്ട് ഈ ടൈപ്പ് ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ എനിക്ക് പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് ചെയ്യാനൊന്നും ഇല്ലെങ്കിലും പോലും what should you do? You should implement that also. Public void മൂന്നാമത്തെ മെത്തേഡ് key type. അതും as a key event as a parameter. Okay. Now, if you have nothing to do in key type ചെയ്യുന്നതേക്ക് ഒന്നും ചെയ്യാനൊന്നും ഇല്ലെങ്കിലും you should implement this. Leave it as blank. ഇങ്ങനെ blank ആയിട്ട് വെച്ചാൽ മതി. കോഡ് ഒന്നും എഴുതണ്ട. But you have to implement everything. So, ഇപ്പൊ ഈ ഒരു എക്സാമ്പിളില് I created a my applet, which is a source, okay, which registers to a listener, which it's itself. Here, source and the listener is my applet itself. My applet thaniyana source and listener because I'm implementing a key listener. In here, I can also implement not only a key listener, I can also implement comma iterator, mouse listener implement here. But mouse listener implement ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ mouse listeners list of methods ഉണ്ട്. എന്താ mouse clicked, mouse pressed, mouse released, അങ്ങനെ കുറെ methods ഉണ്ട്. ആ methods എല്ലാം ഇവിടെ താഴെ define ചെയ്തിരിക്കുകയാണ്. പിന്നെ അത് മാത്രം ചെയ്താൽ മതിയോ? ഇല്ല. If you want to receive notification, എന്ത് ചെയ്യണം? I should register this mouse listener. This. Okay, ഇത്രയും കാര്യങ്ങൾ ചെയ്യണം. Clear?
Clear.
Anything doubts? So thank you all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.